Week 12 reactions to everything that's gone down in Week 12 of the NFL season. I know it's just me this week. We don't have Isaiah. He was at the Ohio State-Michigan game, so you just get me for the instant reactions, and we'll have more stuff later this week together. And of course, we'll have our Week 13 predictions. And the first thing I wanted to address is kind of not so surprising Frank Reich firing. I mean, the Panthers have been 1-10. The offense has looked horrible. Bryce Young looks hopeless. And I think the bigger story here, bigger than Frank Reich getting fired after, short tenure with the Colts, now very short tenure with the Panthers, shorter than what Urban Meyer got, is the fact that the Panthers organization is in disarray. David Tepper is turning into probably the worst owner in the entire NFL. I mean, we look at where he started in 2018. That season was a mess. They only won 5 games. Then he gives Ron Rivera a very short leash in 2019. Went 5-7. Perry Fuel finishes out the season with 4 losses. Then he goes and hires Matt Rule. We all saw what a disaster that was. Last year gets fired very early into the season. Then Steve Wilkes steps in, goes 6-6, gives that Panthers organization some hope. And then with new management, a new coach this season in Frank Reich, they trade up for Bryce Young. They make a big signing in Miles Sanders. They add Adam Thielen as a veteran wide receiver presence. They traded away the best piece in their offense in DJ Moore in order to acquire Bryce Young, and now the offense is a complete disaster. And how many seasons is it? And now the 6 seasons that David Tepper has owned the Panthers organization, he's fired 3 head coaches, and the organization, they have no first round pick next year. They essentially traded either Caleb Williams or Drake May and DJ Moore and whoever their second round pick would be in 2025 for Bryce Young, who now he doesn't look nearly as good as CJ Stroud. Anthony Richardson had more bright spots. Danny Devito, who played in less games, has 1 less touchdown and 6 less interceptions and a much higher quarterback rating, playing behind an equally bad offensive line. The Giants have given up 15 sacks over the past few weeks. So the offense has been a complete mess with the Panthers. I don't see how they have much future. Ike took a massive step backwards at offensive tackle compared to what we saw last year, and the offensive line, there's no consistency. So if you're a Panthers fan, I don't know how you have any hope for the Panthers to be any competitive over the next 2 seasons, because they don't even have a first round pick next year to try and make that turnaround. And if you're a head coach, why would you want to work for David Tepper? He's going to give you a very short leash to turn around this complete mess of an organization, and you don't have any pieces to really work with. What young offensive mind, let's say you're the Lions, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, why would you want to come to the Panthers? You have a greater chance at guaranteeing you never had to have a head coaching job again rather than succeeding with whatever the Panthers have. So it's a complete mess. The owner doesn't trust whichever coach steps in there. Granted, Frank Reich might have not been the answer, but I don't see who'd want to coach for the Panthers. I don't see how they're going to fix this with the manage they have there with David Tepper, and it feels like what the Commanders Redskins football team, what they were a few years ago. Like, ownership horrible, not making the right decisions, and the entire organization is a mess. If you're a Panthers fan, you're not very happy right now. Panthers, complete disaster. Moving on to the next thing. And we have the Eagles-Bills game. It was a fantastic game. Josh Allen was phenomenal. Jalen Hurts, not so good in the first half, and then just keeps coming back. Scores touchdown after touchdown, makes throw after throw, clutches out the game. Jake Elliott with a phenomenal kick to send the Eagles to overtime. And there's a few storylines I wanted to address. The first being kind of what's been floated out there with Josh Allen this season, that he might not be that guy. He's not the same guy without Brian Daboll. The offense has not looked all that great. He's not in the top 3 quarterback conversation, and I think the hate has been a little bit too much, and there's more nuance to that conversation than people would like to address. I mean, he is 3rd in the NFL in passing yards. He's 1st in the NFL in passing touchdowns. I understand he's 1st in the NFL in interceptions, but he also has that production he adds on the ground. And the issues with the Bills are the same issues that there's always been. Their run game does not have a consistent force from the running back position. They never scheme that well, and they don't have another elite receiving threat to pair with Stephon Diggs. And then when you look at the fact that every single game they've lost this year has been one-score games, when Josh Allen is not Superman and when he is not perfect, the defense has been unable to step up because they've lost Matt Milano, they've lost Tre'Davious White, they were missing Taylor Rapp and Dane Jackson last week, and they also are missing Daquan Jones, who was placed on IR earlier in the season. So when you're missing a starting defensive tackle, you're missing the most important player on your defense in Matt Milano, and you're missing the best corner on your team and Tre'Davious White. The rest of your season is not going to go all that great when you're missing those many key players on your defense. And, I mean, Josh Allen threw for 337 yards, I think it was? 340 yards, something like that, against this Eagles secondary. So, Josh Allen is not the biggest problem the Bills have. It's the fact they had so many injuries on defense. That defense cannot get consistent stops. There's not much else to it. I mean, it's a personnel issue. It's maybe Sean McDermott's not the guy. The one silver lining from last night is that James Cook was getting it going a little bit. Joe Brady seemed to give some rejuvenate that offense with the run game and the way he worked different play calls for the run to play off the pass, the play action. I liked what I saw from Joe Brady. It's not all on Josh Allen as much as I would like to stick it to Bills fans and the Josh Allen brigade. It's not all on him. And then when we come to the Eagles, and Eagles fans are going to be out there parading this win. They're going to be parading themselves as the best team in the NFL. And that may be true. They have one loss, and they've looked great every single game this season. But then there's the same people, and I've seen this a little bit out there, that call the Eagles the most overrated 10-1 team, the 10-1 or 11-1, 10-1 team in the NFL. And I don't really see that, but I do see a little bit of truth to that, and I see where they feel the Eagles are a little bit fraudulent. They start out every game very slow. They don't start out. Jalen Hurts does not start the game hot. They're not like the Chiefs from a couple years ago where it's just touchdown, 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 one after another. I mean, the Bills were up for a majority of this game, so that is a flaw within this team. And their secondary is atrocious. I mean, they have the fourth worst passing defense in the NFL right now. Dak lit them up for 370. Josh Allen just lit them up for 340. Sam Howell had 397. Kirk threw for 364 and 4 touchdowns. So when they play a very good NFC team in the playoffs, there's a very good possibility, or it's almost a guarantee at this point, that their secondary and pass defense is going to get lit up. I mean, last year, they went from having the best pass defense in the NFL last year to one of the worst in the NFL this year. They're giving up over 70 yards more a game this year in passing yards than they were last year. So even though they have that excellent interior defensive line and they have one of the best rush defenses in the NFL, it doesn't matter when you're giving up a pass touchdown here, 50 yards here, 50 chunk there, then they're getting diced up and down the field. That leaves them vulnerable. I think because of that, I don't think the Eagles are dangerous as they were last year. It gives the ability for teams to play with them, and because their offense does not start hot, and it takes a little bit for Jalen Hurts to show that he is an elite quarterback every single game, it gives the opportunity for a team like the Vikings, like the Cowboys, like the 49ers in the playoffs to start the game hot and stay out in front. Now, what I will say in benefit to the Eagles is what they've done when they've gotten behind is that they are the most talented team in the NFL. They have 2 elite receivers. They have a very productive running back. They have the best offensive line in the NFL. They have Jalen Hurts. They have a phenomenal front seven when it comes to stopping the run. And when they get down, they do not stop playing. They do not roll over for anyone. They keep playing the game. They keep scoring touchdowns. They never get too far behind to where it's impossible to come back, but I do think, like I said, there's the potential for that to bite them in the butt come playoff time. Now, that could not be the case. They could continue. They could fix those problems come playoff time. Maybe their pass defense improves. Maybe their offense starts off hot and it doesn't take them a quarter and a half to get going to where it makes it a close game. But I just, with what we saw in the Chiefs game, the Chiefs should have won that. What we saw in this Bills-Eagles game, if the Bills defense shows up, what we saw in those games, it leaves the door open for teams to beat them. And I think last year's Eagles team was more dominant than what we've seen this season. Still a great team, still one of the best team, maybe the best team in the NFL. Like I said, they have the best resume now, beating the Bills, beating the Chiefs. They beat the Cowboys. They've beaten a lot of good teams. But to Eagles fans out there, I think the door's open. There's clearly some weaknesses on that defense that weren't present last year. When they play the 49ers, that is going to be an excellent litmus test. I hope I pronounced that right. Let's see what Brock Purdy does. Let's see what Brandon Ayuk does. Let's see how that run game does. Winner of that game is going to tell me a lot. And of course, they also still have to play the Cowboys one more time. So I'm really interested to see what happens those two games. And that'll tell me a lot about how I feel about the Eagles heading into the playoffs. Also, hopefully for Eagles fans, Jalen Hurts stays healthy. And for all the positive I just said, just know, I would like to see the Eagles lose. I'm a Giants fan. So everything I've said is my opinion. It's how I truly feel about it from an objective lens. There's no spin. There's no positive spin I want to put on it. There's no negative spin I want to put on it. That's how I feel. And now we get to my Giants. We get to the Giants. They actually beat the Patriots. They have 4 wins this season. They're 2 games out of the playoffs somehow with how weak a lot of that NFC is. And Tommy DeVito, he seems to be a solid quarterback. I mean, he's okay. I don't think he's a future star. He's certainly not a franchise guy, but he has 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions over 4 starts, a 92.4 quarterback rating. And to the Daniel Jones, the people that champion him, the people that think he's an elite quarterback. When we see Danny DeVito, I'm saying Danny DeVito now. When we see Danny DeVito throw for 397, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions over 4 starts. Tyrod Taylor has 597, 2 touchdowns, 92.1 quarterback rating over 2 starts. And Daniel Jones has 909 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 70 quarterback rating. Even if you want to throw in the caveats there, the offensive line, week 1 versus the Cowboys, whatever caveats, however you want to stack the deck to be most pro Daniel Jones. The biggest thing from this is he does not deserve $40 million. We are seeing what Brian Daboll is doing with an undrafted free agent rookie quarterback when toe-to-toe with Sam Howell, who's leading the NFL in passing yards right now, went toe-to-toe with that Commanders offense, granted, only scored 10 points, but they beat the Patriots. The fact he's doing that with an undrafted free agent rookie behind a horrible offensive line that's given up 15 sacks over the last 2 games, and Tyrod Taylor, who was the backup, also looked better or comparable. Let's just say they've been comparable. Danny DeVito's making less than $1 million this season. Tyrod Taylor is not making anywhere close to $40 million, and Daniel Jones is getting paid $40 million. So with how good of Brian Daboll is as a coach, I believe he's the guy. I think he's had a few haters out there. The fact he's doing this with these quality of quarterbacks and does this a similar thing with Daniel Jones, the Giants have to cut bait. I don't care if they draft someone. Well, I would like them to draft someone this year, and it would be nice if they got like a Jaden Daniels, or maybe later in the draft they get a Bo Nix or even a Michael Penix. There's a plethora of guys right now, but let's say they get one of them. Or if they don't, let's say they get a Brock Bowers, or they get Fashanu, the tackle from Penn State, or the tackle from Notre Dame. Let's say they get one of those guys and then maybe wait on quarterback. The point is, he is not the future of this franchise at $40 million a year. He's not a franchise guy. He's not that elite guy. He has some things he does well. Yes, he runs well in a straight line. Yes, occasionally he throws a very accurate pass. Yes, occasionally he'll have a great game. But the bad, there's too much of it. He's way too inconsistent. In the face of pressure, which you're going to have at the NFL level, he does not do good. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, Tommy DeVito facing similar levels of pressure. DeVito only has 3 interceptions. Tyrod Taylor had 0 interceptions. They don't turn the ball over. Daniel Jones turns the ball over. Shell of what we saw last year. And last year only threw 15 touchdowns. So it's not like he was special last year. And the Giants have dealt with a bunch of injuries. Anyway, that was a bit of a ramble. I get passionate about the Giants. And when it comes to the Giants, ruining their draft pick, they're ruining their chance at Caleb Williams, they're ruining their chance at Drake May. I mean, you look at quarterbacks drafted in the top 5, their track record is not all that great. I mean, we see Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston. Guys that, at the time were viewed, franchise guys are going to save the franchise. The history of top 5 quarterbacks is, Baker Mayfield on a different team. Not a lot of these top 5 quarterbacks have made it to their second contract. So to say that Drake May or Caleb Williams are sure things selected within the top 5. Far from a guarantee, and maybe that's a little bit of a cope, but it is what it is. Next topic, we have the Texans and the Jags. And CJ Stroud, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, and this may be an overreaction, but he is better than Trevor Lawrence. 2 to 3 years from now, the Texans are going to be back atop the AFC South. The only reason the Jaguars were able to pull out that win and why they're 8-3 this year is because they have more talent on that defense, and they're a more complete team, and they've done more winning, so they know how to do it. The Texans were the second worst team in the NFL last season. Not much has changed on that offense outside of adding CJ Stroud. They added Tank Dell. They added Dalton Schultz. Nothing about that screams that they should be this close with the Jags. And Stroud throws for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, rushes for 47 and a touchdown. Stroud is amazing. He is phenomenal, and I think he's better than Trevor Lawrence. I have never been overly impressed. Now, people may say, what are you talking about? Jags fans might get so upset at me saying that. And because he had, I think, it might be the most passing yards in his career. I mean, the Jaguars have talent, and I don't know, he just, to me, does not survey the field at an elite level. Is he a very solid quarterback? Yes, but I think we're coming to the point where he's closer to a Kirk Cousins than he is to a Patrick Mahomes, or in this case, CJ Stroud or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow. That is how I truly feel. I think people like Nick Wright, who anoint him as the prince, I think they're wrong, quite frankly. I could be wrong. They could wind up, making a deep push, but I don't think he's as good as Stroud, and I was very impressed with Stroud. He does it every single week. Last topic I wanted to cover today is the Ravens and the Chargers. And if you're the Chargers, how is Brandon Staley still on the team? I mean, this is now his 3rd season as the coach, and the Chargers, they have no identity. You have a defensive head coach. The defense is horrible. It's not like you need to keep him because you're worried about the play calling getting messed up on the offensive side of the ball and keeping continuity there. And now the offense, they're struggling to win games. I think that Mike Williams injury was devastating because evidently Quentin Johnson, whether you want to say he's not ready this year and has a lot to work on in the offseason and has a chance to fix himself, fine. Let's even grant that. But this season, he's not been able to step up to the plate. Josh Palmer has been injured, and there's not a lot of weapons outside of Keenan Allen. Gerald Everett, a nice piece. They don't have much else to throw to. I think 10 different people caught passes against the Ravens, and I do think there is some truth to Justin Herbert might not be as good, or the coaching. I mean, we know the coaching doesn't put him in a good spot. I mean, Justin Herbert, I don't understand why he doesn't use his legs more. Last night, we saw a glimpse of just how athletic he is. We see that he has some of the similar wheels to a guy like Daniel Jones, and they never use it. They never tease, or they don't use it often enough where they tease the defense with his speed and then play off of that into his passing game. I don't understand why that was utilized more, and I think probably a few people were thinking the same thing when they saw him run 35 yards down the field. Austin Eckler has been a shell of himself this season. He hasn't been nearly as effective as we've seen him in the past. He was never really the most pure runner of the football, so there's that. They have the same record as the Giants. I mean, what else is there to say? And on the Ravens side of things, I mean, they always seem to play down to their competition, and they seem to play up to their competition when they're playing a good team. So I don't feel like I learned much about the Ravens. I mean, their defense only gave up 10 points. We know their defense is elite. Isaiah Likely was their leading receiver. Zay Flowers had a big rushing touchdown, had another receiving touchdown. Odell had a few solid catches. The Ravens, I think we know at this point they're capable of beating any team in the NFL at their best. They are the best team in the NFL. It's just a matter if you get their best week in and week out, not the most consistent team around. So that's what I have to say this week. Week 12 reactions. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Use code Thicc on Underdog Fantasy if you want to help support our content, and we will see you in our predictions. I'll see you later this week with Isaiah.